Welcome to a special podcast series, Breaking the Silence, Canada's Classrooms of Injustice, a series that delves into the stories about the federal day school system, produced by the Legacy of Hope Foundation with the generous support of the Indigenous Screen Office. Over the course of 8 episodes, we'll hear powerful stories and reflections that shed light on the often overlooked impacts of the federal day school system on Indigenous peoples, families, and communities. Join us as we listen, learn, and honor the stories that must be heard and must never be forgotten. Today, host Gordon speaks with his friend and day school survivor Dolores Peltier. Dolores is of the Three Fires Confederacy, which is Odawa, Ojibwe, and Potawatomi, born and raised on Wacomicongo unceded territory, located on beautiful Manitoulin Island. Dolores has lived in Ottawa for over 3 decades and works with Gingul Nonprofit Housing as a tenant relations officer. She attended 2 Indian day schools, the first called Kateri Tekakwitha and the Pontiac School from 1966 to 1974. Dolores shares insights into her day school years and going from being class valedictorian in grade 8 to the shift that she experienced in attending provincial schools in North Bay. Dolores wants Canadians to understand that although cultural and sacred connections were attempted to be taken away from Indigenous peoples, they will always be found inside. Please enjoy this episode of the Roots and Hoots podcast Day School Series project.
Hello and welcome to this podcast on the federal day school system in Canada. Our guest today is Dolores Peltier. Hello, Dolores, and welcome. How are you?
Annie, bonjour. I'm good. Thank you, Gord, for having me this afternoon.
Sure. Maybe just tell us a little bit about yourself and your community and a bit about your family background.
Annie, Dolores Ndijnakos, Wawashkashandodem, Odawa, Ojibwe, Potawatomi are the Three Fires Confederacy that I'm from. I wanted to introduce myself in my language and my clan, which is the Deer clan. I'm starting to recognize who I am by using my language because that was something that I didn't have growing up. I have 2 adult sons and I have 2 grandchildren. I married my husband Tom in 2009. I come from a family of 8 brothers and 3 sisters, and 2 that I didn't know of because they passed when they were babies. And I was blessed to have my parents till in my late 50s. So they both passed when they were 92. So I was very blessed to have them for that length of time. They both lived in their own home right till the time of their passing. And so I live here in Ottawa. I've been here for 28 years. I've lived in Iqaluit, Nunavut. I've lived in Moosonee and mostly the Northern Ontario towns and cities after leaving home when I was 16 years old to attend school. That's where I'm from. And the reserve that I'm from is... I was born and raised on the Wacomicongo unceded territory on the eastern peninsula of Manitoulin Island.
What does unceded mean?
Unceded?
Yeah.
Just means that they've never signed any treaties with respect to the land that we live on. However, there are some treaties, the Robinson-Huron Treaty, that affects our community and some reserves in and around Manitoulin Island that were signed as a result of some of the land around that very spacious island that we call Manitoulin.
Yes, beautiful island.
Beautiful island it is indeed.
What was the name of your community is Wacomicongo?
Yes.
First Nation, and where was the day school that you attended?
The day school, from what I remember, was called Kateri Tekakwitha School, but eventually was renamed to Junior School. And I went to that school in 1966. That's when I would have been 5 years old, the year that I started kindergarten. And that school housed students right up until grade 4, and then after that you graduated to the bigger school called Pontiac School, and Pontiac School was previously named St. Ignatius School. But there were also other buildings behind this school that was known as Pontiac School, or is known as Pontiac School, where my older siblings attended. I have a vague memory of, my older siblings attending the day school, but I just remember being at junior school. The years were formative, but there was a lot of things that I couldn't remember, from the time I started kindergarten right up until grade 4. Yeah. There's some memories that I have, but not a lot of happy ones.
Yeah. This is slightly off topic, but I'm just curious, did your parents, they were like 92 years old when they passed away, you said. Mm-hmm. Did they attend a day school or did they attend a residential school?
Well, from what I remember and what I've been told is that my mother did attend a residential school right up until grade 8. But my father, he didn't go to a residential school. Even though he was a couple of years younger than my mom, he didn't go to a residential school because he stayed at home with his grandparents. Yeah. His uncles, they were older than him, and they, I guess, as they grew older, they served the military. I don't know how much older they were, but they went to war. Yeah. So my dad, as far as I remember, he did go to a day school only up until grade 3.
Okay. Well, let's talk a little bit about the day schools that you attended to. When you went to day school, did they provide any food or?
Not that I can remember. No. Now, for me to walk to school, it was about 1.7 kilometers. So that's a fair hike for a little 5-year-old, 6-year-old child.
No bus service?
No bus service. They only provided buses to people that lived in the satellite communities like Rabbit Island, Caboni, or they had their own school in Caboni. Yeah. Murray Hill, Wikomkosing, there was different schools because the reserve is so large that that we had our own school in the village. And we had to walk, and from what I remember, we were only provided snacks in kindergarten. Yeah. And that was powdered milk and these hard biscuits that we called dog biscuits. That's the texture.
That's what everybody says, yeah. We all had the same thing, so federal government's dog biscuits.
I think so.
And powdered milk, for sure.
Yeah, and that was, I always remember that because I never liked it, but we had no choice. We had to drink it.
Yeah.
And then I believe that we had to take our own lunches, but I mean, the children, even myself, can remember that we didn't have a lot to, in terms of lunches. Right. Maybe a sandwich, and those were like really skimpy sandwiches.
Right. Bannock.
If that. Yeah, because, we didn't have, the white bread and stuff like that. Yeah. But it was like mustard sandwiches or lard sandwiches, or even if we had peanut butter,
that was a treat, eh?
That was a treat. Yeah, and then maybe an apple. Yeah. But no drinks whatsoever. We just had to do with what we had.
Yeah, for sure. People need to know that, when going to school on the reserves and the poverty, and the lack of food, and it was this incredible lack of facilities, proper facilities. I don't know if you had a toilet and a washroom in your building, but I know going to day school, we just had outhouses,
We were fortunate to have bathrooms in our school because I think it was newly developed at that time, so in the mid-60s, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
So we weren't one of the ones but living at home, we had to deal with outdoor toilets.
Yeah. Were you allowed to speak your native language, and how, and if not, like, were other students allowed to speak their native language?
I don't think so. They were really pushing on children to speak English.
Right.
And I believe that if the children did try to speak the language, I believe they were punished for it.
Yeah. That's common.
It's
Yeah.
common, and for me, that's where I think I've lost my language to speak, the ability to speak my language, because having to be forced to learn the English language, and
Yeah.
then you bring that language home to your family, which then, you know, you're listening to your parents, they're speaking the language, but also at the same time there's that, you know, language barrier at the same time. So we all had to learn. You know, this language issue is that, okay, well, I want to learn my language at home, but yet I'm forced to speak English at school.
That was quite common, having parents that spoke only, you know, their traditional language. My cousins were the same way. My grandparents didn't speak English, so I kind of grew up speaking Cree and English. But my cousins, they were never, they could never speak in Cree for some reason. They were, some of them went to residential school, some of them went to the local school, provincial school, but they never could speak Cree. They're what we call the silent speakers, people that can understand the language but just can't speak it. You know.
And that's for me as well too.
Yeah.
Is that I understand what people are saying, the majority of their conversations. However, I want to be able to speak it, but I just can't. It just can't come out of my mouth for some reason. In here in my brain, I can hear it, but I can't. It's very hard to do it vocally.
Yeah, yeah. What, like, in your community when you were, describe, like, talk a little bit about what it was like going to day school growing up in your community.
I wanted to think that it was normal. However, it was tough. Teachers were strict. It was humiliating because a lot of times the teachers would punish the children in front of the class, hitting them, or, you know, straps. Oh, definitely were definitely used in our throughout the schools, and just belittling us, making us feel like, you know, we're not worthy, you know, and that sense of hopelessness, you know, it's like I'm no good, you know, that's what it felt like. Religion was really enforced in our classrooms. They had prayers every day before the class. And I remember in grade 1, the nuns were still there, but as I moved forward to, you know, each year in school, they slowly moved away from being the teachers or the principal, and it was non-Indigenous teachers that came in, both women and men. And then by the time I reached grade 4, I had my first First Nations teacher. She wasn't from our community, but she was from another reserve. So it was hard, and being poor and growing up with little or nothing, you know, bringing that into your school, to your friends, it was hard, you know, and I didn't have a lot of friends. You know, all the kids hung around together, but, you know, there were groups of kids that hung around together and activities outside, but there's a few of the kids that hung around that didn't feel like they belonged. And that was hard.
Do you find that, like, when, in terms of discipline, that the teachers pretty much had a free hand in doing whatever they wanted to do with the students, like in terms of discipline, and no like repercussions, or nobody in the chief or council saying anything to them about it?
Well, you looked up to the teachers as some form of authority, right? Obviously you had no choice. You had to listen to them. So whatever they were doing in terms of punishing the children, they could do what they wanted to, the way that they thought was right in terms of punishing the child. So, I mean, as a child growing up, you know, it was really difficult to go through that. And I mean, like, some of the teachers that were residents of the community, I mean, they were strict as well, too. And I mean, some of the kids were talking about, you know, she was a tough teacher, you know, she was a good teacher, or whatever, you know. There was some, you know, comments that, you know, different students had about each of these teachers we had. But most of them were non-Indigenous teachers.
I found that in some cases, Sue, and I think they were fairly new teachers, right? That really didn't have any experience, probably just coming out of teachers' college or whatever. And some that came to my community were couples, like husband and wife,
Husband and
both
wife.
teachers, And yeah, that's the way it was back then. What would you say you had a positive or negative experience while attending the day schools?
In terms of answering that question, I wanted to try to find positive things about it, but also at the same time, I had a lot of negative things.
Yeah.
I think it's just mostly because of what I encountered with other students in the schools,
Mm-hmm.
the different grades that we went through. But at the same time, there were some teachers who were genuine, that wanted to be a good teacher,
Mhm.
but
Yeah.
and you didn't forget who these teachers or even the principal.
Yeah.
We had this principal. I'm not sure how many years he was there, but he was an Irish guy. He
Yeah.
brought his family with his children, and his name was Mr. McSweeney.
Did you go to school with his kids? Or did they go to school there? Or?
Well, that's what I was trying to remember, whether or not. But they were very small, so they would have been younger than
Okay,
me,
yeah,
and
yeah.
so I think they may have gone to the classes with some of
Mhm.
the other students. And he was a good teacher. And by the time I, reached grade 5, I remember we used to walk over to the big school. We called it the big school, the
Mhm.
Pontiac School, because it had a gymnasium,
Yeah.
and that's where they had performances. And so the big thing was at St. Paddy's Day, because he was Irish.
Yeah.
So he would put on concerts and
Wow.
go all out with St. Paddy's Day, and everybody wore green, and you tried to dress up, and then they played the music.
Yeah.
I
Irish
still
music,
remember
yeah.
the song
Yeah.
that they used to really kind of incorporate into the concerts and stuff like that. But
Does that still happen? Like, do you still do that? Like, is there some of that stuff still continue on? Like, on St. Paddy's Day?
I don't think so.
No?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
But I mean, it was really
was really
pushed
big,
back
yeah?
in the day.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that was one of my, I guess, fondest memories. Well, he was a genuine person that cared about
Yeah.
people, because his wife, like they, from what I remember, they were involved in the community. His wife and kids would visit my mom and my aunt and my grandmother, so
Yeah.
they would, they weren't afraid
That's
to
right, yeah.
to be engaged in the community.
Yeah, a lot of people that come to indigenous communities reserves that are from the outside that come there to work as a nurse or the base store or teachers, they tend to keep to themselves. I've found anyway. And but there were a few that in our community that got involved in the community,
Yeah.
and participated in some of the events. How was that in your community? Was it the same?
It's the same.
Yeah.
I remember this. I think he was I'm not sure if he was a principal or a teacher, Mr. Moscal, and he had 2 girls as well too. And we were invited to play with those girls, and
Yeah.
they invited us over for a birthday party one time. And it's not, you expect to bring a gift, but they didn't want us to bring gifts.
Yeah, yeah.
So the girls, what they did was they gave us gifts,
Oh, really?
thanking us for coming to their birthday party.
Wow.
So, learning about that, it's like it's not about you having to worry about getting a birthday gift for the birthday person. So, things like that. So I think that, people genuinely wanted to get, engaged in the community and get to know people. And so I think that, and to this day, I know of 2 individuals that have maintained their roots to the community.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Well, that's good. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
but they were
awesome.
both teachers, like a husband and wife,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
Ryans, and Larry LeBlanc,
Yeah.
Henry Hoy. These people are still connected to the
Yeah.
community after all these
Yeah.
years that they were teachers,
Wow.
and so that, like I said, that's one of the good things,
Yeah,
positive things
That is positive, yeah.
that I've seen.
I don't ever remember going to a birthday party on the reserve
No way.
as a kid.
We didn't have those either, but I think later on in my teenage
Yeah,
life, I
maybe
did.
later on,
Yeah.
yeah. But as far as I remember, I don't think I ever went to one birthday party.
Yeah.
And we never got gifts either,
No.
like,
No.
because of the economics, we
Yeah.
just people just didn't have the money to do stuff like that. And it wasn't really our tradition, right? Not something that was passed on.
That's right.
This whole present thing is all new and recent. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, now it's so different.
It is. It is. I mean, it's a big change from
Yeah.
when we were growing up.
That's
Absolutely.
right. So, what has life been like for you after day school? So, what was the you went through the day school system, and you obviously you continued your education, and what did you do after?
I did. After I finished grade 8, I went to Manitoulin Secondary School, which is a high school on Manitoulin Island located in Chiging, which is the reserve. It's a 45-minute drive from our community. And that's where all the students went that lived on Manitoulin Island. So I went there for the first 2 years.
Was that a day school?
No, it wasn't. No, it wasn't.
Provincial school.
It's just a provincial
Yeah.
high school. So after grade 10, we were given the opportunity to be part of this boarding home, a school program, to be able to attend a high school off reserve. So my parents agreed to have my brother and I, my next oldest brother, to go. So I chose to go to North Bay. But my mother wanted me to be in an all-girls school, which is run by nuns.
Yeah.
So I agreed just to, have that opportunity to move away from home and live off reserve. So I went there for 2 years, and I had changed my mind. I said, no, I don't want to be in this all-girls school anymore. I was like a day school, I lived in a boarding home. I didn't stay in residence. And then for my last 2 years, I went to a public high school because my friends went to that school. So I
Yeah.
said, I want to be there as well too.
Yeah.
So it was a little tough being by myself in a boarding home when I said, okay, I want to be with my friends. Can I
Yeah.
come and stay there with them and then go to the same school they do?
Mhm.
Because it was tough when you're
Yeah.
16
Yeah.
years old, learning about living life in the city. You've never lived out there on your own. You had to, work on those challenges. So I did that. And then after high school, I went to college in South Porcupine, which is outside of Timmins.
Yeah.
I went there for a couple of years, and then things changed. Then I went back to school again to get my business, my diploma in business administration.
Yeah.
So I continued my education because I thought it was important.
Have you heard of? You mentioned boarding home. You lived in a boarding home.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
You aware of the
Yes,
lawsuit
I
on the
am.
boarding home program?
Yes, I
Yeah.
am. We already had a presentation done in my community, so I
Oh, okay.
participated in the meeting by virtual means, so
Yeah.
through Zoom. So I'm aware of that
Okay.
that lawsuit that's going
Yeah.
on as well too. So
Okay. So how important is it for Canadians to know about the federal day school system? How important is it to you, do you think, in your opinion?
well, it's a tough question, because a lot of us are still suffering. We're still, feeling the effects of the residential school, the intergenerational trauma that is being felt from, those parents and grandparents that attended residential schools. So the loss of language, religion was ingrained into us. The non-Indigenous teachers who were there, some were there just because it was a job and didn't really, I guess you could say, not really care about
Yeah.
the student. They had a job to do,
Yeah.
to teach the kids. And if the kids didn't want to learn for whatever reason was going on in their lives, they just didn't, I don't think they really cared. So punishment still applied, so it's a next generation of residential school, I find. But we were able to go home to our parents, to
Yeah.
our families.
Yeah.
We were, living at home on reserve.
Yeah.
And all the kids were, suffering in one form or
Yeah.
another because of the trauma that they faced, the intergenerational trauma. So there was no culture or traditions in the school.
Right.
So today I brought my feather with me, my eagle feather, and I wanted to, I'm incorporating anything I say and do with my eagle feather because I find it's a powerful guidance for me. And we didn't have this growing
No.
up. In the
No.
schools, nothing was taught to us about our culture, and we never grew up with knowing the traditions about powwows or
Mhm.
ceremonies or, all the gifts that we've been, taught about, just simple things like
Yeah.
Mother Earth, and
Mhm.
all the trees and the birds and everything.
Yeah.
So it was more of survival, survival that we had to, in order for us to maintain our food, we had to do gardening,
Mhm.
taking care of animals and,
Yeah.
pigs, chickens,
Mhm.
cows, that sort of thing. There was a lot of agriculture in our community
Okay.
growing up. So one of the things, when I talk about survival, my mother was always pushing us to go berry picking.
Yeah.
Thinking, well, we got to go pick berries. It's such a, as a kid, it's such a, boring job to do,
It
but
was a chore, right?
it was
back
a
then?
chore.
Yeah,
It was
yeah.
really a chore. And so, and even sweetgrass picking, and you have to go out in the middle of month of July, and it's so hot in July,
Yeah.
out in the fields picking the sweetgrass,
Mhm.
and not really understanding why, but it was something that we
Yeah.
had to do.
Yeah.
So now as an adult, I understand, what this was all about.
Mhm.
This is our way of
Yeah.
our traditions.
Right. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
this wasn't even taught in our schools at all. So I
Yeah.
think it's important that, other Canadians understand how, this was taken away from us, but
Right.
yet we still had it in us.
Yeah.
I mean, there may be others that, share similar stories or other things that they've been through as well, too. So
Mhm.
this is, what I remember of it.
It kind of leads into my next question, and it's about reconciliation in Canada and what you'd like to see for the future of our country.
I've always been passionate about children and youth. And I find that, the children living on reserves are still being, the treatment of our children is so unjustifiable. And even the children here in towns and cities and urban centers are not getting the same benefits as, our mainstream children. So it's always important that we really push to make sure that our kids have the same,
Yeah.
Treatment and
Quality.
the quality of, because I find that growing up in that school system with the Indian day schools, we're carrying a lot of pain, we're carrying a lot of scars, and all we're trying to do is learn and get an education.
Mhm.
And I think with that, it has resulted in a lot of us carrying more pain than trying to learn.
Mhm.
Some of us can't learn in a school setting where you're sitting at a desk all day
Yeah.
long. It's difficult. Some of us may want to go out into the bush and learn.
Mhm.
That's what a lot of us, being
Yeah.
out on the trap line,
Yeah.
not necessarily me, but there are others that have gone out on the trap line, and that's how they learn
Yeah.
about survival. So I think that's where, it's important for us to hear our children and learn and teach our children in a new way, that how we were treated is that, you had to learn,
Yeah.
you had no choice.
Survival.
Yeah. So that's what I think that moving forward in terms of reconciliation is that, giving that opportunity to our children to learn
Mhm.
a new way,
Yeah.
because we don't all learn the same.
Right. Is there anything else you'd like to share about your experiences in the day school system that you haven't mentioned?
I think I wanted to say, but I already mentioned it earlier about the teachers and
Mhm.
making that impact. But at the same time, I'm really grateful that I've had that opportunity to have that education.
Mhm.
But there's still something missing, I find, because whatever happened back as a child that I can remember, which wasn't a lot,
Yeah.
is that I wish I had more, opportunities like music, for example,
Right.
or sports. We
Yeah.
did play sports, but was there that opportunity to
Wasn't
learn more
organized, right?
things? Yeah. And and I think that's one thing I miss as an adult. I love music,
Yeah.
but I wish I had the opportunity to learn more music.
Right, yeah.
That the guitars and all the instruments that
Right.
are provided, we didn't have any of that
Yeah,
because we
yeah.
just couldn't afford to bring those instruments into our school.
Right.
So those are, some things that I miss.
Yeah.
Or even, like, I remember having to do public speaking,
Mm-hmm.
but what else could have been available for us? Crafts or, different
Yeah.
styles of art, for example, was that available? I think that it was limited because of the funding that we received,
Yeah.
and the schools received on reserve. We just couldn't afford to have that.
Yeah.
So I think that's basically it.
Yeah. What about like when you went from day school to public school? Day school is federal, and the public schools were, most of them are, if not all, were provincial, right? Did you find it hard from going from federal school, from day schools, to the provincial school? Was the education system different? Because I'll tell you why I'm asking this, because I went to the day school on the reserve, and I was an A student in grade 6, and then we were sent away to a residential school in the province, the provincial school, and I had a hard time. I became a D and C student, like
Absolutely.
there's a difference, right, in education level.
Well, I'll tell you this. When I was in grade 8, I was the valedictorian
Yeah.
of that class
Yeah.
year.
Yeah.
But when I went into high school, that's like totally different world. I mean, like,
Right.
you're basically starting fresh all
Yeah.
over again,
Yeah.
when you go into a
Behind,
new,
yeah.
you feel behind,
Yeah.
like you're lagging, you're not strong enough in your skills and
Right.
your education,
Yeah.
so you always felt like you were, I thought I was smart, but I'm not.
That's right.
I'm not,
Shuts your
so
confidence, yeah.
it really brought my self-esteem down, and
Yeah.
so my grades went down. And then even being in schools where there are non-Indigenous people that you had to go to school with, what they made you feel like as well too. You
Yeah.
didn't feel like you were part of,
Yeah,
or
yeah.
you were so excluded from these groups. There may have been one or two
Yeah.
of the kids that
Makes
wanted to
sense.
know about you, that they talked to you, sat with you on the bus or
Yeah.
whatever,
Yeah.
but it was tough.
Yeah.
It was really
Yeah.
hard in high school. And I think that's why I struggled, because when I finished grade 10 in Manitoulin Secondary School, I went to North Bay and I had to start my grade 10 again
Yeah.
because I didn't have enough credits to
Yeah.
move me forward into the next grade.
Yeah.
So I had to redo that class
Yeah.
again.
Which probably helped you.
It did.
Yeah,
It did.
yeah.
And I managed to, do well in school
Mhm.
later on because I put that effort into it. But
Yeah.
hey, I graduated grade 12. That was probably the happiest moment in my teenage years.
Exactly. Like, yeah.
And because we were, I wasn't the only student in that school.
Yeah.
There were many of us that were given the opportunity to be in that school
Yeah.
that were from my community.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Dolores, for taking the time to do this with us. It's an important subject that not enough Canadians know about, and we hope that your story will enhance the knowledge of others across this country.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome. Egusi.
Now.
Thanks for tuning into this special podcast series on the Federal Indian Day School System, produced by the Legacy of Hope Foundation and made possible by the generous support from the Indigenous Screen Office. This series deals with difficult subject matter. The Hope for Wellness helpline is available 24/7 to Indigenous peoples across Canada and can be reached at 1-855-242-3310 or available through chat at hopeforwellness.ca. Counseling is available in English, French, Cree, Ojibwe, and Inuktitut on request. For more information about the Indigenous Screen Office, visit iso-bea.ca.